Mendham, I think you're absolutely correct as far as, you know, why people do things for enjoyment. And you're right. It is an addiction. Absolutely. I have to agree with you 100%. It's an addiction. It gives you a natural, or it can give you a natural high. Certainly it did last night for me. And it wasn't even either of my teams playing, but just the the emotional time I have invested into this simple game, and when you see things go a certain way and you happen to side with, like you said, side with one team or the other for whatever reason, and that team does well and wins, gives you emotional high, gives you the dopamine. And I actually made a comment on your video saying that they did a study and found out that men's testosterone increases while watching other men. It sounds sort of gay, but watching other men play sports. Because, like you said, they live vicariously through those athletes. And, you know, some people are born with certain attributes, and their brains work a certain way to where they're able to play at a high level, whether it's sports, whether it's the stock market, whether it's going to Harvard, becoming a doctor, going to Stanford. Some people are, all men are not created equal, or women are not created equal. I know that, and unfortunately, I wasn't gifted enough to do these things that I admire in other human beings. So definitely live vicariously through them. But at the so I'm gonna be the one to admit, yeah, it takes me to another place for 3 hours, or depending, could be longer. My wife would probably say no, it's like an all day thing, which she'd be right. If it's a bunch of games playing, so it takes me to another place, and it actually feels good. Your team wins the championship and it feels good, or the team that you're looking at and you're pulling for, it feels good. You feel good for other people that you don't even know. That is sort of strange, but it is that's my addiction. I could have worse addictions, I guess. I could be an alcoholic. I could be addicted to heroin. As far as what you said, yeah, I mean, it's really hard to figure out what human beings are supposed to be doing um, on this earth. I mean, if you look at a lion, he's, cutting down the population of the antelope. And, you look at the bees and they pollinate. So, what are we supposed to do? And I don't think anybody has a foggiest idea what our true meaning on this world is. But that being said, going back to the subject we're talking about, sure, if someone came to me and said, it's your family, or one person in your family's got to go, it's got to volunteer to be euthanized painlessly, I would choose myself, of course. But that's because I have a family and emotional interest, and you know, I feel that I would be the one that would want to sacrifice. But in some ways, that's, when people die, like you were mentioning, like the 80-year-old person dies and people cry and he died in his sleep. I mean, that guy, he's gone and he doesn't feel anything. The people that are around that are crying, it's sort of a selfishness. You're gonna miss that person. the same time, if I volunteer myself to be terminated, then I don't have to feel anything, and everybody else will have to feel it. So I don't know. It's a double-edged sword. But yeah, being the male, I feel it would be my duty to sacrifice myself for the sake of my family. But if I'm single with no family, then there'd be no way. Yeah, it's a roller coaster, like you said, and I'm really surprised you said at 10 years old you knew at 10 years old that you didn't want to be here. That is really, you really did think deep for a 10-year-old. I was thinking at 10 years old what I was thinking about, and um, as far as my experience, I couldn't even see death at that point, much less the meaning of life. You're a kid, you think you're going to live forever. I don't know, this whole YouTube experience, I've seen the peak oil, I've seen the discussion of racism, the discussion of what we can do to solve this problem of 6 billion people on the earth, and to make us a sustainable animal on this earth. And like I mentioned in Dario's video, I really think that eventually this whole thing will play itself out one way. Obviously it'll play itself out, but something will thin out the population. If it's not war, it'll be famine or disease. But unfortunately, like you say, that entails some suffering. Then you'd see me wanting to check out pretty quickly. I'm not one for pain. I'm not a sado or a masochist. I would definitely want to check out the first sign of suffering, major suffering, obviously. Anyway, but it's hard. It's hard to get on YouTube and watch these videos because there's really not any easy solution, and the generation I grew up in is always looking for an easy solution over a tough solution. And if I swing the camera around, I don't know if, no, you won't even be able to see it really, but I'll try to swing it around here. Yeah, well, you can see the light, right? You can't really see the light, but you can see. Yeah, that's one of those little pigtail lights, environmental lights. And I've got them all over the house. I invested $150 to try to do some part in cutting down on energy consumption, but there's only so much I can do before it becomes a little out of my price range. And it's really discouraging because I'd say 80% of the people, maybe that's conservative, don't really care. They won't go and get those lights. So it's almost like, it's almost like sticking my finger in the dam dike, trying to hold the water back, and Niagara Falls is falling on the other side. So it gets depressing. So back to when it gets depressing, sometimes, I feel like I have to live in the now and live in the moment and not dwell on all the things that are going around me. And my drug of choice would be football. And unfortunately, it only happens 5 out of the 12 months of the year. Some people would say that's fortunate, but not me. All right.